Okay, call this work session to order Wednesday, March 21st, 1 p.m. Open for visitor comments. Yep. Come on up and state your name for the record, please.
I'm Teresa Knight, president of the Columbia Arts Guild. I would like to submit this request for a vendor's umbrella license for our Spring into Arts event. And we're a nonprofit organization and we're all volunteers. And I would like to request that the fee be waived for our event. I've given you all a map of what we'll do. We take over the Columbia Center for a day, and it involves all different types of artists, musicians, writers, fine arts. We'll have a coloring contest for schools, a youth art show, and the food bank will be there to collect donations, and we have the Humane Society brings their little dogs there and to generate interest in adoptions and for donations as well.
How much is the fee?
The fee is what a percentage of our sales.
Okay.
I think it's a great event. I mean, I'm just looking at this and seeing all the different things that are going on. I see the youth is very involved. It's, I would have no issue with
Is
that.
this something you've done before?
Yes, but this is the first time we've had vendors. In the past, last year, we raised money to build cabinets and by doing a raffle. And we had an art show and we charged a small fee, like $3. And that is pretty much our budget this year, which the event insurance will pretty much take up all of that.
So the sales is more of a fundraiser than it's not like a hot dog stand.
No, it's basically is a fundraiser to fund next year's event, and we're also planning on, in the future, as soon as we are able, to open a hub for the arts in St. Helens, where all the artists can gather and we can have events. And most importantly, bring all of our donated art materials to one location instead of my house.
Right. Well, and just a question for clarification, not for these guys. When we have all the vendors out here for 4th of July and they sell all their stuff for nonprofits, do we charge them a percent? Okay. But that doesn't mean that's not what we're supposed to do. I'm just trying to say for consistency's sake, because if we had charged the people at 4th of July, it wouldn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, do we have a history of letting nonprofits not pay, or do we usually charge them? Nonprofit fundraiser kind of stuff.
The policy is usually to charge, isn't it? And then the fee.
The code is that we charge.
Yeah.
Every time you waive, how I see it is every time you're waiving, you're setting a precedence for it to continue to be that way, where you're breaking your own code. So my suggestion is that she pay the fee and that the council decide on their own
To donate it back.
to them, and then you can do that on a per event basis instead of just random waiving of all nonprofits.
When I read that, I thought that was an extremely good policy to follow, and it means in support of your endeavor. However, we don't go astray in just granting one fee after another, where it becomes almost a joke to even have a fee. So I really appreciated that follow through, and I would endorse that. I think it's a very effective mean to maintain the policy, and then whoever wants to step forward, like yourself, and get that fee money reimbursed and back, that's potential and possibilities to do that for the council.
So if we donated it back, that would be the same effect.
Yes, could I request that it be a flat fee, like a booth or table fee, instead of a percentage? The reason being, it gives us an idea of how much money we can raise, and that helps us set our prices. When if it's a percentage, we really don't know, and there are lots of times when I'm sad to say artists don't make anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And it would be better for all of us to know what our expenses and for
Well, if they don't
artists
make
as well.
nothing, they're not paying nothing.
Right.
It's 10%.
Are
Is
you-
that right? Is it 10?
Are you charging the artist a vendor fee, a booth fee?
If it has to be one or the other, we can't have a sales tax and a property tax both.
My suggestion is that you charge a booth fee, and to make it easier for you for accounting, is that we base the 10% on your booth fees.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We would appreciate that.
And it's not very complicated. You bring it into Matt, whatever it is. I think they paid cash, Dutch Brothers on my Citizens Day in the Park. Wasn't much, and we donated it to Youth Council. I think it was like $70 or something like that. So
Thanks for bringing arts and culture to our city streets. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful event.
So just clarification, are there other fees besides this concession or?
No, not because she's on the Columbia Center property. It's
Okay.
not like park fees or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we get a city logo on this?
yeah,
Sure. You
a
bet.
sponsorship. I like that.
I'll make a note of that. Do I have one more minute to
Yes,
bring up?
you
Okay.
do.
I would like to propose that the Columbia Art Guild work with the Art and Cultural Commission to have the paintings from 1958 that are of the storefronts of St. Helens framed and preserved. I have 2 bids that I picked up in Portland yesterday. One from Michaels, and their bid says they gave me 70% discount, and I saved $10,750
Wow.
for 9 framed matted paintings. So their price for that is $4,607. For I've Been Framed, which is where all of us go, it's $1,723. And what I propose is we have them restored, and then we have an art show called Then and Now at the courthouse when it's done with its refurbishing, and maybe have a car show, and just at the end of all of that, have them just displayed here permanently. That's my
Is
proposal.
it something you guys would be willing to set up for Citizens Day in the Park, which would probably be August 18th?
Yes?
I haven't got a date on it completely yet, but I'm getting close to locking it in.
It just depends on how quickly we can get the funding.
Sure. And it's 1,700 on the one bid and
1,723.
47 on the other.
Yeah,
Close enough.
yeah.
Don't have to think
pretty big.
about that much.
Yeah.
Have you run this by the Arts and Cultural Commission yet?
Nope, I just got, just got the information yesterday, and I've been trying to do a lot of things, and, but Susan just emailed me her contact information, so I will be talking to her. Joan's been working with her on the This Is Us St. Helens project.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And you may see a flyer there called Adventure in Art in Columbia County.
Yep.
That's a year-long virtual art competition that we're doing that will culminate in an art show in January. The winners of that art show will be published in a book that I will publish. I volunteered to do it. It's not going to cost anything. I'll publish it. It'll take the year of 2019 to publish it, but when we publish it, it'll be in conjunction with tourism, as far as we want to have tour routes for each city and each area, so we can draw the Portlanders in to buy our artwork. That's our evil plan. But
Sure.
We will have the art in the book, and then maps and tour information in the book, and it will be available in January 2020 on Amazon.
Excellent.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Hey, other visitor comments?
Steve Topaz, St. Helens Street. I noticed that we have a comment section from our mayor about the ferry. So I put together some things about ferries across the river here in St. Helens. And there are a number of strange things that come up. One is money, how to make it. The other thing which has hit the news a lot is we've got to protect the environment. And most recently on television, there's been the demonstration of if we have an earthquake, or when we have an earthquake, what's going to happen to the bridges in this end of the state of Oregon. They didn't show Columbia County, but they showed what was going to happen in downtown Portland. Now let's start off with the environment. And Portland has been complaining about the huge amount of exhaust fumes and traffic jams on I-5 trying to cross the river. And part of any internal combustion engine is how much load it's handling and what type of work it's doing. And if you want to move something quickly and cheaply without much exhaust, you go by water. And there's some numbers here, how much better it is in the way, how many more miles per ton per gallon of gasoline. Railroads are good, cars are terrible. Parked cars are even worse. So if we could get cars across the Columbia, one, just the distance travel would cut down the carbon. Getting rid of the gridlock is another huge thing. So that's one thing. Now, one of the traditional ways of driving large ferries was diesel engine. But now with the new electric drives and the fact we've got relatively cheap electricity here in Washington and Oregon, you'd have an electrically driven ferry boat. And we're talking on thousands of horsepower of electric drives in the marine industry. Now, we're not talking outboards. Now, we'll get a little more into that. There's more little details. But now let's talk about the impact as far as getting people across for money. One, obviously, you need a crew to run a ferry boat. And ferry boats run 24 hours a day. And you're talking 3 crews per day, plus a backup. So you've got basically 4 crews on standby. These are not minimum wage jobs. These all have to be certified people by the Coast Guard. So again, we're talking about fairly high-paid people. Well, then you got to maintain them and build them, and that's another large group of people, also long way from minimum wage. Okay, now, so we got people going back and forth across the river. Is it going to help anybody? Well, there's 2 groups that really need people. One is Amtrak, and the other, fortunately, or whatever, is a casino. They just need people. Both of those groups have a problem with parking. If you try to go to Seattle from Portland and you try to find a place to park downtown Portland, forget it. If you could park in St. Helens, get on the ferry boat, and get on Amtrak, no big deal. Further down in the sheet of paper, it points out that 64% of the people who ride ferry boats come by car and park the car. They don't get in a vehicle on the ferry boat. So ferry boats are more people movers than vehicle movers, and it isn't immediately apparent. The next thing that this thing does, ferry boats don't run continuously. They run on a schedule. There's a number of minutes between when the next one comes. So sitting in your car, you might as well get yourself a hamburger, or if the schedule is long enough, a quick meal. So we're now talking about small businesses just to feed people on either side of the ferry. But we also, when we're talking about parking, you're going to pay for the parking. So you've got a business to parking. Now, Amtrak is connected to the transportation system, and they have money, and one of their tenants is to try to get other ways to get people to use the railroad. So they have funds to help connecting devices, ferry boats, buses, trains, to get to them. Which means if we're going up the Lewis River and getting off the ferry boat close to the railroad tracks, we've got both I-5 in our sights and Amtrak, with Amtrak helping, as far as their charter, pay for this connection. But the casinos also need people, and if you need a lot of people, you want to move across the interstate bridge, it's not really conducive to a happy evening in the start. Now, you look at this and you wonder, why would they do it? Well, we have a town down in Nevada called, I'll think of it in a minute. And one of the problems to get to Vegas is you gotta go across Lake Mead or around it. So the casinos paid for and built a ferry boat to get gamblers through Utah and Arizona to Nevada. So the possibility of having, say, a casino or a private company build this ferry boat is not particularly unusual. Okay, so we've got people using this device, the ferry boat. We're going across the river. The crew is regulated by the Coast Guard. So we have a fairly substantial safety program in place. We also have, with the Port of Portland, well-known schedules of the large ships going up and down the river. So the safety of who's moving when are they, is quite well known as of today. That's not something that's going to be new. Okay. So we're talking about business. We've got parking. We've got, when you get off the ferry boat, because you've just gotten off the train, you're going home now. We're not going to someplace. We're coming from someplace. You know, maybe it's just time to sit and rest for a minute before I get in the car. Maybe the wrong time of day because of traffic. So the possibility of pushing your restaurants or people who want to even stay in a hotel goes up just because you've got people here. Now, this last week in television, we had a simulation of what was going to happen if we have a big earthquake in Portland. And we really don't want to talk about it, but the bridges in this area about ready to fall down without an earthquake. If we have an earthquake, we can pretty much expect you're not going to be able to get across the Columbia River. And it becomes now an advertising point of view. Hey, we've got another way. It's not a great way. We can't get 10 million people an hour across the river, but we can keep commerce, trucks, people going back and forth across the river in case of disaster. Again, we're now talking to people who have money. We've got ODOT, we've got the Federal Transportation System, we got rails. So it isn't like St. Helens is having to pay for this. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of comments about we need a west side bypass from Portland, which in fact we do in the politics, as you know how that's messed that up. But sooner or later, it's going to happen. Because Portland right now is the big bottleneck on I-5 between the Canadian border and the Mexican border. Yep. And it's going to get shoved down our throats, or mainly the city of Portland's throats. This is the place to go. Well, a big portion of the cost of something like that is the bridge. Well, we've got a way to get across the river with a relatively cheap way in the beginning. So it's kind of, let's start the west bypass quietly before we turn it into a major 6-lane highway. It's an advertising point. It's getting people used to crossing the river to a different place. So we really should push as hard as we can to get a ferry boat here. Now, what do we know about ferry boats? Well,
Steve, I got to interrupt. You're almost 10 minutes. And you've got
okay,
five.
I'm done.
I just want you to wrap it up.
So I was allowing Steve to talk because it was on our agenda, and I had asked him to actually.
I think he should be on the agenda then to go ahead and do that. But I'm.
You had spoke what the council wanted, and the last time I spoke here, I asked what was the official list of things you wanted. You said you're going to get back to me, and as yet you haven't. So I assume this is off the table. Thank you for telling me that. I won't waste my time anymore.
Steve, no, I appreciate you bringing this information.
I appreciate you being here, but it's 5 minutes. I mean, that's our rule.
It partly is me to blame, Doug, because I had asked Steve to bring this information to us, and I was giving him 5 minutes of his time and 5 minutes of my time in the ferry discussion, I guess.
Okay.
So
that's fine. He can have a half hour.
So
you can have a half hour, as far as I'm concerned, if you're on the agenda.
So that's where I was going with that. Leah, do you have any comments? Would you like to? I see you're out there. And I recognize you. Okay. Okay, so that's why we were going into this exactly next. Is why I was continuing to let Steve talk for a little while longer. Is to discuss the ferry, proposed ferry idea, which is a hot topic in some crowds that I talk to that are definitely in favor of having a ferry system here. First and foremost, when Steve was talking, I was writing down number one is disaster relief, period. We have a National Guard that is 2/10 of a mile from where a ferry would naturally sit in the Frogmore Slough. We have a truck route coming down into there. We're talking about reconfiguring the gateway to the river, which is definitely going to change all that out there, Millard Road and Gable, and be a suitable road for traffic to come down to a proposed ferry with a National Guard 2/10 of a mile away. Now, if we have, it's not a matter of if, it's when we have the earthquake, and we are going to. Science backs it up. You can all be in denial about it, but it's going to happen. And these bridges go down, and we just had a scare of a backpack that was stuck on the Lewis and Clark, and I'm stuck over there in Longview at a doctor's appointment. I have no way of getting home. Well, first and foremost, it should be for natural disaster relief, that ferry, in an emergency like that. But secondly, it should be for the residents who live on the Oregon side, who are on the Washington side, or are on the Washington side and or on the Oregon side and need to get onto the Washington side. Tina, you can appreciate that. You are here right now and we had an earthquake, you're not getting home. Tina is from Washington. There's no way. I can motorboat you over there and you can hitchhike, but you ain't getting home in your car. So with that being said, if there was a ferry here, and I think he hit on a few key points as far as that ALNA, and I have yet to discuss with them, but it's something I think we should think about is talking to them, seeing if they would, in most casinos, if a person shows up there with a ticket stub from a ferry, would pay it because I'm going to buy a meal there and probably gamble some dollars there if I end up there. Emissions was number 2 on that. I think an hour and a half for me to take off right from here right now, either which way I go, and to get to Woodland, it's an hour and a half. So I think that is huge. And then jobs was number 3 for me. They would be good paying jobs for either some Washingtonians / Oregonians. So those were my 3 on the list. I think I know it's been discussed in this council before, and I want to bring it back up for discussion.
It's been discussed
Many
several
times.
times. I've spent hours doing research on it. I know Doug spent some time. Susan has spent some time. Other counselors have spent some time.
Yes.
But I think it's a great idea. Always have. So whether or not maybe this is the right time to bring it up, I don't know. But I would, just to save time, because we've talked about this so many times in our council meetings and spent so much time doing it, if you or somebody wants to lead the charge and start looking into it again and get whoever the players are to the table, I don't have an issue with that. So,
What were some of the difficulties you ran into? This is what I need to know.
and I know the port has
legislators were
been.
not interested in pursuing it.
The ship captains were adamant about not having one. I think
The port brought up a ton of different barriers.
That's
People
funny
that
because
needed to be agencies and people that you needed to go through in order to do it. Funding is an issue.
I think
I think that it's necessary. Economic development happens along I-5. It can affect our transportation, our employment, disaster relief, as you mentioned. It's the future.
Doug, you were getting ready to speak.
well, it's all there. I mean, all the arguments are very positive of having a ferry crossing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there. It all makes sense. There's no problem with that. What Keith alluded to is that getting people on board other than the individuals in this community
Right.
is the issue. So you sat in at the meeting that we had with Senator Johnson and Suzanne Bonamici when I asked her
About the Lewis and
specifically
Clark
about
Bridge.
transportation, about, and especially about our commerce, our truck transportation, and what kind of activities. You probably followed up after that with the ferry kind of thing, but both of us were there and brought that up to a point, and all of a sudden you could hear a pin drop. I mean, nothing was said. There was nothing back at all. And it seems to me like it just falls on deaf ears no matter where we go. And that nasty little acronym of ODOT keeps coming up, and their transportation system and their master transportation, the first thing they'll ask us is what's on our master transportation plan. And how does that affect Highway 30, and how does it affect the rail crossing, and how does it affect all of those kinds of things? So I don't know. Keith and I made the journey over to Woodland and asked their city council to come aboard and work with us, and we never heard back. So there is that we did 10 years ago, I think, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, somewhere.
About 8 years ago, yeah.
But beyond that, I brought that to our economic development team, and there was a lot of kind of, I don't know, just kind of no reaction at all. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Where are we getting the money? And that's most of the.
And I brought it up to the governor's appointee on housing and transportation, and our senator was there, and there was pretty much no reaction there either.
Well, so I know I'm just a little mayor from St. Helens, Oregon, and I hope somebody actually sees this.
I sent you my
Don't let
information.
this be your Katrina moment. That's overt disaster by having something in place in St. Helens, Oregon that has a National Guard that is 0.2 of a mile off of the river, that you going to take control, an Oregon National Guard. Now, Washington should want this more than we do. They're blocked off from the rest of the United States by the Columbia River.
They do have one ferry crossing down in Claskenai.
It goes to the
It goes
that's
over
a ways away. Now there are 1/10 of Washington's community lives in Lewis, Clark, and Cowlitz County. I've already done the facts. 1/10 of their population. The other about 6/10 is all the Puget Sound, and then the rest of the state. There's over 450,000 people in 3 counties right here. That a lot of them are working in Oregon because of taxes, and living in Washington because of the property tax, but work in Oregon. This could be your Katrina moment or your not Katrina moment. And I hope that I'm not in the news down the road when this does happen, because science does back it up, that, this little mayor of St. Helens was warning you.
Well, I think
So
that
to the
we
federal
all-
government, I would ask you to, look into, if that's what it takes, there's always somebody above those people that you guys were discussing.
talked to Suzanne Bonamici in a town hall about it one time, and I can't remember what she said. Something about us not having the trained workforce to make it necessary.
It's
to
a
have
lot of
that.
work, and it's not self-serving right now. But if there's a natural disaster, it is huge.
Here's a selling point for you: it's cheaper than building a bridge.
Yeah.
So I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to see it happen. But it's a huge task to move it forward.
So
It-
I have a couple thoughts on it if you
Sure.
would like to hear them. I mean, there has been a long-standing interest in this ferry, but it's an ultra-complex project. It's
Yes.
a career worth of effort to put something like that together, and we just kind of back away from those resources. So how do you elevate it to the level where somebody's interested in that? And my thought was that we have this opportunity with this waterfront redevelopment. We've got the governor's ear on through the regional solutions team as part of this our redevelopment is a project of statewide significance. And when you break that down, what does that mean? What is the waterfront redevelopment project? It's just kind of a sum of its parts, right? It's the redevelopment of the veneer property, potentials of the repurposing of the lagoon, expanding down into the former white paper site and creating an industrial business park that's all kind of interconnected and has all of those elements. And this notion of a ferry, which seems to be a prevailing community interest, could be added into that, so if they're willing to take it.
Is that something Regional Solutions would help us with?
Potentially, yeah. So we, through our COLPAC, our Northwest
Right.
Economic Alliance, which is Columbia, Clatsop, Western Washington County, and Tillamook County Economic Development Group, we have this thing called a Community Economic Development Strategy, and each community comes up with its priorities. And they're all unique but kind of similar, and our waterfront project is on there, and then there's projects within that plan that have identified the projects that are of regional significance and supported through the governor's office. And I think that's a good place to kind of put this issue to bed, or get it started,
Yeah.
or get it started through some feasibility. You have all the components of a feasibility study. Is
Right.
it technically possible? Can you construct it? Does it, is there a market for it? Is there, the traffic impacts associated with that, the environmental impacts?
Well, and I think 2 lanes all the way to St. Helens, and then of course we get back into 1 lane
Well, that would
would help.
there would be some kind of study that would identify that, and then the political ramifications. Is it, I've talked with Ridgefield over the years. We've talked with, sounds like conversations with Woodland, but just the project being St. Helens connecting to I-5. Now, we don't need to say it's going to go from, where it ends. I don't think it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
got you.
That
The
would solve
I-5
itself.
connections.
And,
And now that you brought that up, you sparked a memory bank. I believe Woodland actually came over here when I first was on the council, so that's going to be like 16, 17 years ago. And I think the study at that time was like $1.5 million or $2 million, the study. So
The
that was,
study.
yeah, just the study.
Okay.
So we're probably looking $3 million today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's
but when it comes to major transportation projects, that's probably in line with how much have they spent on the Columbia River crossing.
right.
Yeah.
Which was what was going on the last time it came up too. The Columbia River crossing was the focus then.
Well, the natural progression would be a resolution by the city and get that to allow the port and allow the county to understand that we have an initiative and a resolution on the table. From there, if it's of interest, then the port can come on board. They own all that property all the way down to the down to the county line, and west of here, northwest of here.
So
Is that
I hear what you're saying, but is there maybe another route? That seems like a dead end road to me.
Does it really?
It does. I think a state level with the National Guard, which is national, and it's Oregon National Guard that sits 0.2 of a mile. I think they might be a huge instrument, and maybe probably the biggest instrument. Trying to talk with the cookie in my mouth. I'm sorry.
I think they're a stakeholder, and there are a lot of other stakeholders, but first we need the feasibility study. So is that what the resolution is that you're talking about? To
Resolution by
champion a
the
feasibility
city in
study?
support of a ferry study.
Okay.
If that goes forward, we need to get other local people involved, and that would include the port and the county. And if you jump over them and not include those two,
I've already tried talking to our county commissioner, Heimiller. They think it's too steep. They don't want it. They don't want the challenge. They don't want the road that's in front of them. I've been there. Trust me, I've done a little bit of footwork already on this.
But you talk just to one
But-
person.
Yeah.
But I think we have a lot of stakeholders that would be engaged, and the fact that some of them were interested could influence some of them that.
Listen, I understand there's only 3 commissioners over there working for a whole county. It's a lot of work. I'm thinking that we go to the state level and see what they can help us out
All
with.
we're asking for is support with a resolution. It means that we've
Whoever wants to support us.
we've started the initiative.
Yeah.
Then all we're asking for is support
Yep.
as you move forward. And I think you do have a good idea with involving the National Guard and involving disaster relief. I think that's a great idea. So, but we need support if we're going to move forward, I think. That's my only.
Noted. Okay. Any other? This will come back up eventually, but not next meeting. But we will have some more information on it soon.
I should share that in a recent amendment to to that SEDS, I did add exploring the feasibility of a St. Helens I-5 crossing. Just full disclosure, it's on the list potentially. It hasn't been necessarily embraced by the Regional Solutions team yet, but we've put it as a community priority on that list. Even though our TSP doesn't recommend it, it's kind of blind to it. So.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks, John.
if we're, I
Yep.
mean, since Doug brought it up, I mean, why don't we?
You wanna do it?
I would move that we direct staff to write a resolution.
I
Do we?
been quiet because we were talking about getting information. There's a significant contingent of our community that would think that inviting I-5 to our backyard is not a good thing. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that look at Jansen Beach and look at Vancouver, and they live here for a reason, because they don't want to live in Jansen Beach. And what connecting to the I-5, we all saw what that did. The weeks that they had I-5 closures, we saw what that did to Highway 30, and we saw how that affected our rural community.
Yep.
And I think we need more community outreach, more citizen outreach, because the majority of people that live within a mile of here are not going to be for this, because they don't want the traffic of 1 month, let alone the traffic of 365 days a year. And we need more community groundswell. I just haven't heard it other than in this room that is supportive of a ferry.
Oh, I have.
Well, I've heard it too.
So I'm just saying I am not in support
I've got-
of
I've
spending
got-
any city dollars.
I've got a couple names I could just throw out there that I know: Keith Forsythe, Jeff Yarber, Steve Topaz, obviously. Steve lives nice down here. I'm within a mile. I'm in North 10th. I know you're on 5th.
Yeah, I'm just telling
So-
you that you talk about.
And it would be
bringing
awful
connecting to
neighborly if
I-5.
it was a natural disaster. It would be awful neighborly to be able to help people get home, wouldn't it? And that
I'm
we
just
have it
saying
here in
it's not
place.
necessarily all sunshine and lollipops.
No, there are going to be different opinions on the subject, but I've been hearing it for years too. When I had the shop, I had people come in. There are people that are employed over on that side that have to go all the way around by the bridges, and vice versa. We have people employed here that live there.
Kathy, is it something we have to vote on to have a resolution drawn up? Okay, so consensus to have a resolution drawn up supporting a ferry. By a raise of hand in favor of? Opposed? One opposed? You got it. Okay. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to add that
Show hands.
the concerns, the social and economic concerns would be considered part of any feasibility. There'd be a public outreach component, and
I just,
there'd be all.
Yeah, well, it's not a done
all
deal.
those things would be addressed in any kind of look. So.
Yeah, it's not a done deal. It's just a discussion topic and for people watching. It's not getting built tomorrow.
And this resolution should be, I think, perceived to where it's about the community, not just the city of St. Helens. So you brought up, Frogmore Slough is the area where that, has for the city has the most capabilities. But a study on where appropriate landings would be, whether it's near St. Helens or not. It could be, it could be right in the heart of Columbia City, but then you'd get pushback. And
That's
you,
what I heard from the commissioners.
exactly.
Well,
So
I think all of that
that
would
sounds
come
like
up
you've
in a
already talked to
feasibility study.
Sounds like you've already talked to him, Doug.
But that's what the
I say we've
feasibility
been talking about
study
this
is
for a long time.
to gather all of that information.
All right. So let's move on to request donate audio cassette and Columbia County Museum. Margaret.
There are some oral histories on audio cassettes belonging to the city that are, I think, in the vault. And our reference librarian, Brenda Heron Kanega, who works regularly with the Museum Association on historical resources that both the library or the Museum Association has, brought these to my attention and recommended that we donate those to the Museum Association so that they can be preserved because they are in a magnetic tape format and they appear to be relatively old. We're concerned that if we don't do something to transcribe them, that information will be lost. And the mission of the museum is consistent with preservation and access for the community. So right where they are right now, there's no preservation and no access. We recently made a similar request for the city to donate some historical newspapers to the Museum for Preservation as well. And what we've said in here is that we retain the right to have access to that information, just like we did with the newspapers, if there comes a time when something that's copyrighted comes out of copyright protection, or we have a way to share that maybe through the library's resources. So there wouldn't be anything lost on the part of the city in terms of access, but the big benefit would be that they would be able to preserve that information and more readily make it available to the public. So that's what we're asking.
I think it's awesome.
when we moved into the parks building over there, when I first came on council, we did that recommendation to move back into the parks. But the parks building was full of video cassettes. I think Keith recalls that.
From Channel 9.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And are those the cassettes that you are referring to by chance?
No, these are the ones we're talking about are audio cassettes. They're here at City Hall.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the status is of those video cassettes. I've heard about them.
They were over at Friesens. Are they still there?
Sure.
Yeah, the the museum guys have already gone through all of those and picked out whatever they wanted out of that pile, and there's still a whole bunch of them over there. But it's over at the old Friesen building now, which is left over. But the museum people have already gone.
How many
through all-
tapes are we talking about, Neil? Just curious.
Hundreds.
I believe that, yeah. Yeah.
Room full.
You need any VHS cassettes?
We were busy taping.
So everybody thinks it's
You
a
want a
good
good
idea.
laugh?
Right,
I think-
Teresa?
Great idea.
Yep. Go ahead, Margaret.
I was just wondering if maybe some of the other people around town might be interested in getting a hold of some of those.
Mm.
Some of the people that we interviewed, maybe.
Yeah.
I think two of the people, some of those tapes that I viewed, that I saw, those individuals are still in town or in the community who made those tapes. So it'd be kind of interesting to.
I might be on a couple of them.
I'm sure you are.
Would that be Debbie and Nancy
I'm behind
Harwood?
the camera.
And Debbie,
Yes.
yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And Nancy Harwood was a big part of Channel 9.
Guy by the name of Johnson.
Chris?
Mark Johnson.
Mark.
Mark. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mark's back in town.
Okay, we think it's a great idea. Margaret, you're still on for authority to spend up to $16 for painting exterior of Columbia Center.
Yes. Roger obtained 3 quotes for painting the exterior, and this is the bid that he put forward to me. It's actually just a slightly less than 16,000, but 16,000 would also cover some of the costs that associated with repairing rotten woodwork that's out there on the terrace just outside the auditorium, and also around the back where the dock is, and even the staircases on the front have exposed wood that is badly in need of painting. So this would cover the painting as well as some of those material costs, and Roger would do that.
Has that thing had a second coat? I mean, a second other than under construction. Has it ever been painted
Yes.
once?
Yes, and we
Once?
tried to find records of when that was, and Sherry in Public Works was having trouble locating when that happened. I asked Diane; she said she thought it was 2004, but I couldn't get a definitive answer.
I would guess about 10 years ago.
At a maximum 10 years on a paint job, in my opinion.
Well, I came here; it'll be 9 years this summer, and it hasn't been painted in the time I've been here. So.
Well, they recited it. Doug, when was that they recited it? You were here.
I don't know, but we
That-
were on the Ford trail about that time, if I remember, if I recall.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this an inside joke between you two,
It
Ford
is,
Trail?
yes.
Okay,
Oh,
I noticed that.
Worked hard on that. The starting
So-
of the
That's Crown Zellerback Trail, was
seat-
the Ford. the first
Ford
project.
Foundation.
That was 2005.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh
to
my
get
God.
to something that I knew.
There you
2000
go. Okay.
2005.
It was
I know
13
that
years
you
ago
have
then.
reference.
Yes.
Yeah, that I know the date of.
So this is asking for the ability to pay for this project out of the library and building reserve. The total amount in that fund is what, close to $190,000, and it's specifically set aside for.
Building and maintenance.
Yes, it was money left over from the sale of the previous building. And so we have only tapped into that.
And we'll see it tonight, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yep, okay.
Can I add something to that?
yes.
As far as safety goes, my wife actually pointed this out. The front steps, I believe there's a couple cutouts on the edges for maybe a pot or something to sit there. And right now there's nothing on them. And if you was to walk down them, it drops off about 3 steps because it's designed for something to sit there. So it's kind of a safety hazard right now.
This
On
is
the
on
look at-
either side of the front entrance where
Yes.
those big posts are.
Yeah.
A lot of people waiting for the bus sit there.
Oh,
But
they probably do, yeah.
maybe
Yeah, but if you were kind of walking down the stairs and not really paying attention to where you were going.
reading a book,
Yeah, yeah.
that too. All right, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, review annual recommendation to adjust Cascade Reserve allocation 2.
Yeah, this is just an annual adjustment of the percentage that Cascades now, formerly the Boise Mill site, pays for the upkeep, maintenance of the secondary treatment lagoon. And we have seen a gradual, well, maybe not so gradual, but an increase over about the past 4 years of the percentage that they use in there. This is an agreement that's in place, and this is just a normal annual adjustment of that allocation.
And we'll see that tonight.
I'd like to comment on this.
This is it here, yes.
We have Aaron here and whatnot.
Yep.
I would like to ask if we could get the numbers of what's that increase since the clarifier has been broke down, and if we have any numbers on how much solids have been added to the lagoon since that's happened. And after I'm saying that, I'm not going to say anything more because my wife works for Cascades and it's a conflict of interest.
Aaron, when did the clarifier go down?
The clarifier started having issues about 3.5 years ago. and starting in August of 2015, it was down. It's been down since then. They were using it for a while, but more just for pass through. So some of the solids would be caught, but not all of it. In the last 6 to 7 months, they haven't been using it at all. They've been, working on the floor, checking underneath it. But yeah, we've seen steady increase for quite a while now. So I can't tell you the exact number of what I can tell you what is, but I don't know what's broken down. I don't know how quickly the cellulose in the material breaks down, which is not very common in most wastewater streams. So I've got a report I'll be telling you, or I'll be going over in a few minutes that I'll explain a little bit more.
Actually, I was going to let you go ahead. If anybody had any questions on this, I was going to, before I got to Matt, being how you're right there, just let you go ahead and do your report too. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So
Are you okay with that? Not going out of the agenda? Okay.
I can just mention really quickly, since Aaron, you said the Clarify went down in late 2015.
I believe it was August.
Okay, so in 2015, the allocation at that time was about 53%, 52.9% was Cascade's share. This year, we are adjusting it to 86.3%. So that's
good.
How much more
They put in.
Yeah,
They,
of the loading that they're responsible for.
Yep. Okay, Aaron, you're sitting there, and we're going to make Kathy's job a little more difficult. So
Sorry, Kathy.
go ahead.
Okay, I talked to Doug yesterday. He wanted me to give the council a status report basically on the treatment plant, Cascades, and everything going on down there. So basically going on with Cascades, we issued their pre-treatment permit in February, this last February, and it took effect on March 1st. This effectively gives us all the enforcement responsibilities. So they're no longer responsible to DEQ for all their compliance schedules that they had been. So now we have those. That compliance schedule is now in their permit. So it gives us more control over the types of waste and the amounts of waste. Like I said, the compliance schedule is in there. We gave them till the end of March in the permit to have it done because they said that would be completed by then. However, when we handed them the permit, they said the rake wasn't completed yet and they needed more time. So we're in the process of extending the compliance due date. However, there will be some conditions with that. So if they can't get it done by the end of April, we're going to require some kind of filter, some kind of settling, something so they're not dumping such high amounts of solids to the lagoon. They're continuing to still be built up, as you saw today. I mean, they're creeping throughout the lagoon. Once the clarifier is up and running, the large amounts will be stopped. With the pre-treatment permit, they are required to perform a depth survey of the sludge. And what that'll entail is bringing in an outside company to show how much sludge is there. We can compare it to what was done. The last one was done in 2009 when Boise closed their pulp mill. And at that time, we had a consultant on board that said, based on the loading at that time, the lagoon may never need to be dredged again. Granted, it's a may never, but we have a good starting point on what they're responsible for. We have talked to them about the removal process. Nothing's been confirmed. Whatever we do decide on will have to be run through DEQ. It could be as simple as running it through their clarifier. Again, DEQ will have the final say on that. It may come down to a full-blown dredging operation, which will be very intrusive and very expensive. But then we're going to have to wait and see on that until the survey is done. And I believe they have 180 days to do that survey, so they have time to do it. But we should have an answer within the year on what they're responsible for. The next thing I was going to talk to you about was our pre-treatment audit we had in 2016, early 2016. We had the state pre-treatment coordinator perform an audit And while everything went well overall, there were a number of issues that needed addressed. The biggest issue was local limits. The local limits is a study of what is in our waste stream that comes from the domestic side. It doesn't include any industry, but it shows what our treatment process can handle and what kind of loading we can handle from industries, whether they're current or when they come in. So if we have another industry come in, we know exactly what limits we can give them and still maintain adequate treatment to the prior to discharge. We hired Steve Anderson to help us out on that. The process, the sampling took a year to do. He has all the data. He's given the results he's compiled all the results, given the report to DEQ. We've got a preliminary result, and she's accepted it. However, it still needs some final approval, and I don't know exactly how long that'll be. Once we do all that, it'll have to go out for a public notice and some other issues. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that this is coming down. There are some changes to a couple of the sewer use ordinance, a couple other documents that'll have to be finalized. But she also found many procedural and documentation inadequacies. They've all been addressed so far, and most of them are to the permits. We're missing certain numbers, certain testing, some documents that should have been in permits. We had them, but they weren't attached to the permit, so it was more procedural than anything. They've all been corrected and approved by her, so those are done. The last major concern that she had with the program was availability of adequate resources. She noted, quote, "The current FTE allocation to the program may not be adequate to carry out the authorities and implementation of the pretreatment program," end quote. What that means is we need help down there. I realize the budget may not be able to support another employee, but the state recognized that we need help, and with Steve leaving soon, we'll be back down to the original 3. We've been looking at different options, from adding another employee to reassigning some of the responsibilities to other departments, but nothing has been decided at this point. And then the last thing I was going to go over is our lift stations. These are typically our biggest problems in the storms, and I think the guys, and along with the city, we've made a lot of improvements over the last couple of years, and especially this last year. The last 3 years, we've moved from a phone line-based alarm notification system to a cellular system. In doing so, we're saving over $200 a month in utilities, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it adds up, and they're much more dependable. They use the data instead of the voice, so in an emergency, whenever everybody's on their cell phone, we'll still be getting notifications. And in a windstorm, we don't have to worry about phone lines anymore. Last month, we replaced the pumps and piping in the lift station down by Yachts Landing. That was our last lift station that was giving us recurring pump problems, so knock on wood, hopefully those will be slow for a while. And then the last thing I had in this coming month will be replacing the suction lines at another lift station down by the marina, and in doing so, that should lengthen its life expectancy. It's been in service since 1991, and so hopefully those will last for another 20-some years. So anyway, now the questions.
Aaron, thank you for being here. And I asked Aaron to be here because of my report, and I wanted to do a report on the treatment plant. And I thought, well, what could be better than to have Aaron here and get it from the horse's mouth, in a sense, from what's going on there. And with the upcoming budget around the corner, what would you think our liability would be if Cascade pulled the plug and left town right now?
I don't know the lease well enough to answer that completely. If they're on the hook to take out all the sludge, I think we have a very large lagoon for a very small town. We could get by with a much smaller lagoon. It's much smaller footprint for a treatment plant. Liability wise, if they were to leave and we didn't have to worry about the sludge, I think the city would be in some trouble.
Yes.
But again, I don't know. I'm not the legal person to ask that.
And then at this point, at an administrative level, are there any safeguards that we could impose that would protect us?
Again, that's a legal answer. I'm not sure of. You'd have to look at the lease and figure.
I'm throwing that open to our administrative staff to help out on that question and maybe get back to us at some time. But I think it poses an interesting question of are we liable? How, and financially, how much? I know we know about loads in terms of pounds and amounts and that kind of thing, but what are we liable for financially if they go away?
Well, if they went away and we got no more loading from them, the electrical bill would be high. It wouldn't be as high as it is now because we wouldn't be adding any more loading. And given enough time, a lot of that material would probably break down. I don't know how long that would be. I would say within 5 years, you probably wouldn't see any on the surface of the water. But I can't tell you how much of the rest of the lagoon has been impacted already.
Would we be in hot water with the DEQ?
No. As long as our effluent limits are being met, which we're well within limits, DEQ would see that. And you know, they would understand, you know, we lost a major contributor of flow, if nothing else. And if that flow were to be gone, we would just have to run air to maintain adequate oxygen levels to keep it from going septic. And
So this is a good discussion because we had talked about this a month ago, and I was asking John to get our most aggressive attorney and one that understood those type of facilities together and get in talks with Cascade Tissue, because this clarifier was supposed to be, if I recall, November deadline.
Yep, by Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And you know, not to their fault, they found more issues.
Absolutely.
So, you know, there's got to be that kind of understanding, but they could have taken steps to reduce the amount of loading to the lagoon at that time.
If the city were doing this to Cascade Tissue, we went up there to Scappoose and just started dumping a bunch of stuff on there to the probably, and we don't have a dollar amount, but it's millions. Do you think they would? You think they would stand for that? I don't think so, and that's where that's why I brought it up, to get first and foremost, our most aggressive attorney, and then whoever needs to suits that line of business, get them together,
And you asked for that, and I have, and we do have an opinion back, and I've shared that with some of the staff, but I haven't communicated that with the council yet. So.
Okay. And then you mentioned there was an audit for FTE.
Mm-hmm. Full-time employee.
Okay. What is that? The state was requiring, or DEQ was requiring, you said?
They don't require.
Okay.
They recommend.
They recommend.
And
okay.
by that, they mean that we need more resources for the pretreatment program. It's always been handled as a reactionary program, and they want it to be, you know, in the forefront. So when they said it didn't have enough FTE, that if we had, you know, 2 operators at the plant and pretreatment, we could do it with 3, but we have to get rid of lift stations. You add with all the stuff that we're doing, and she realized that we just don't have the
So you guys just aren't at the treatment, you're also at the lift stations. And how many lift stations do we have?
We have 9 sanitary and 1 storm.
Okay. And those run on, you said, cell phone?
The
They
alarm,
used to be hardwire?
the alarm systems are all cellular.
Okay, so you could be at home and get an alarm?
Yeah, well, before you would, but now it's all cellular, and so you don't need any phone lines to the stations. And before we were paying over $50 a month, and now it's less
I
than 30.
heard that $200 saving a month, which is pretty significant. Yes. Okay.
And that audit, is Is that documented in a sense? Do you have that documentation?
Yeah, in fact, what I read was a direct quote from her findings.
Make certain that our finance director gets that for our upcoming budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does he have a copy of it?
Okay. Thank you for informing us that we have some issues down there.
That wasn't painful.
Not what we wanted to hear, but so one last question, and I just got to bring this up. As soon as they get that clarifier, are they supposed to start right away? Because I do not want to go through another summer, and if you, I identified some smells that were not our primary last summer,
Yes.
and you know this summer, from what is down there, is going to be a lot worse. It smells like we're making pulp again,
Yep.
and everybody remembers that smell.
If once their clarifier gets online, they have 90 days to get it working correctly. That doesn't mean that they can't be using it. Once they start using it again, the amount of solids in the lagoon will go down. If they can't get it working correctly, it won't go down as much. But once it's working correctly, they were down to a couple 100 pounds a day of BOD, which is what we measure. And right now they're at 30,000 pounds a day. So that's the big difference. Once that goes away, those odors, once you get a water cap over that,
Sure,
the
it's
solids,
not floating.
yeah, the smells will go away. That's not the concern. The concern is under the water where we can't see.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and then cleanup of that load that's in there now that they have disposed in that area. Any strategies?
Like I said, no, it'll be up to them. But like whatever they decide, and we'll have an input on it. It'll have to go through the state too. The big question is if we could go back through their clarifier. If they could pump it back through their clarifier, that would be the cheapest and easiest for everybody. However, now that it had mixed with a municipal waste, they may not be able to take it to certain landfills, and that may not be desirable. I don't know. Those are things we're going to have to find out once they get their clarifier fixed.
A big thanks to the council and mayor. Thank you. And Kathy, thank you. And Public Works, thank you for allowing me to do my report at this time, the best report I've ever done. Thank you, Aaron. And very appreciative of going out of order. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, so now we're going to review low income water, sewer, and storm assistant program proposal. Matt.
In your packet is a document from CAT about the low-income water and sewer assistance program that was discussed several months ago. And CAT had come in and talked about wanting to start a program as well. The city council at that time gave a consensus to come back with an agreement. So that is this agreement. It is on the docket for tonight's approval. With one change I would like to note. This agreement basically says that the CAT program will issue vouchers to the utility billing office as payment. I requested to simplify the process on our end that the city actually sends CAT a physical check for whatever amount that is each year for an ongoing program if that is what the council wishes, and then CAT would actually cut a physical check back to the person to turn into the utility billing office. That way it eliminates some of the extra steps that would need to be made for journal entries and adjustments on people's accounts. So it makes it a lot easier and faster for us to process.
So basically just put it in their court, make them keep records of it.
And Kat's good with that?
Yes. Yeah, she said she would be agreeable to that, and I was hoping to have an updated draft before today's meeting. Unfortunately, I don't, but Kathy said it was okay. If you're in agreement with that change, we can still continue to pass it tonight, knowing that change.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So maybe I'm not fully understanding. So someone comes into CAT and they're low income or whatever happened, they can't pay their water bill. They qualify for this. The city's going to give them money in hopes that we get it back?
No, we're actually sending a check directly to CAT to manage the funds, just like some other entities do for their assistance program. And then CAT actually cuts a check to the city of St. Helens on behalf of this person.
Okay, I just wanted
pay
to
their
make
water
sure
and sewer.
that how that money was.
So this is a single process annually, or?
It's up to you. When we initially discussed this several months ago, the city council decided to use about $5,000 to start the program, see how it works, see how fast that money is used. And then once that money runs out, when and if it does, we would get notified from CAT, and we could have another discussion if you want to continue the program on a regular basis, or if you want to set a certain dollar amount every year, or however we want to start the process.
The PUD has an amount, and when the amount is gone, it's gone.
Correct. Yep. And it could very well be that the council decides $5,000 a year or something like that.
And that's kind of what we were.
Becomes kind of like
thinking
a
initially.
budgetary item, so to speak.
If you want some history for this, because this was under my recommendation, I'm going to excuse myself because I'm on the CAT board, but this was started years ago under my recommendation when we had a senior discount, which we still have a senior discount, although we grandfathered it, and so nobody can get a senior discount anymore. So it was to replace the senior discount with a needy discount was where this started from. So the intent and idea was whatever that amount was that we were spending on senior discounts was to pass that on to a needy discount. So that's kind of where that came from.
That's where the $5,000 came from.
And I think they got a pretty good screening process. It's really not,
They're experienced at doing this.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a long time.
They're a lot more experienced than our utility billing staff is at checking income
absolutely.
and doing that.
I just didn't want the security of keeping track of Social Security numbers and people's income. Let
Correct.
CAT do that.
Yep. So that's all I had.
Hey, thank you, Matt. I'm going to call Tina up first before I go to the rest of the department. Sorry, we'll pull that towards you.
Tina Curry Consulting. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to give everybody an update on what's going on. We have completed all of the bands for 13 Nights on the River, and we're ordering our postcards to get that information out to the community. And we have also been having the Museum of Peculiarities and Oddities open and doing Easter photos and rock painting, which is going really well. This past weekend, we had people coming from Beaverton and Portland to paint rocks. And I'm like, how did you hear about this? And they're like, well, we love Halloween, and we decided to come out here and let the kids paint rocks, and then maybe we're going to come back and try to find them in October, the ones we painted. I'm like, okay, excellent. And so that's really, opening just a new kind of audience that potentially will be returning to St. Helens in the future. And I got this letter this week all the way from Brandon, Texas, from this little girl. And the mom says, hi, this is going to probably be strange. My 3-year-old loves Halloween, especially Sally from A Nightmare Before Christmas. She wrote the enclosed letter to her and begged me to mail it to her. I told her Sally lives in Halloween Town. So we Googled that and found your P.O. box. Thanks for humoring us. Have a great day.
Sweet.
So I think it's really cute that they're able to actually Google us and find us. So we'll send a reply for sure. And I was thinking that it might be really fun this year to tell people to send us letters to your animated Halloween characters. And then when you get to St. Helens, we'll save a coin for you. And they can pick up the coin at one of the information booths. And kind of just start a grass movement to, encourage people to come. We've also been getting, not tons yet, but probably at least 3 to 5 emails a week from people asking when they should come to Halloween Town this year. Some of them are coming from the United Kingdom. So we have lots of interest, of course, following Halloween Town. We also went to the CCEC and meeting in Portland and found out about different grants that we're going to be applying for and being a party to, which would pull together some of the other cities and communities within Columbia County. Then we also have a sponsor that stepped up to want to sponsor the museum for 3 months this year. So we have Cascadia Home Loans to thank for that. And they also want to bring forward an idea with Bart from Hit Machine for raising money for the 4th of July. And it's all, there's several components to it, but essentially they would be raising money for fireworks with their idea, which involves singing America the Beautiful and online, and then making a contribution in somebody's name, in which we would put up and post so that people could view it, and then have a contest of who sung it best. And I've already volunteered the mayor to be on the steps of City Hall.
That's where I'm going to be.
With Bart and your guitar for the kickoff.
I can't hit the high note, but I'll try.
I hope you'll humor us. So they're going to do that. And then Hit Machine is the first band that's playing for 13 Nights on the River. So we're going to begin, part of that whole process of eliminating and finding the best singer in Columbia County for America the Beautiful, which I think will be a really fun deal. Then John Walsh came up with an idea of, on the 4th of July, having people from the audience pledging some money in people's names. So it's kind of like handing the mic around, to people that are down there that want to recognize and remember a specific person or a day or something like that makes them that makes 4th of July special for them. So some of the money from this fundraising effort will go to veterans. So that's kind of, I think, a great idea. And then also, just an update on sponsor dollars. We have raised so far about $15,000 in sponsor money. And so we're chipping away at that. I have a big budget to compensate for this year, so I've got to, with 4th of July added in there. So I also want to just let you know on the 13 Nights on the River and in fact for Halloween Town, we already pretty much have all of the vendor carts signed up that we had last year. Nice. And some new ones. So we're really on track to know exactly who the players are so that we can commit to promote them during the year. And obviously we're starting our Festival of the Fairies set up with our props, and I've had meetings with people in the community that are super excited about contributing props and things like that in that area. So we're kind of coordinating how that's all going to fit together. And we would hope to have that open by, I'm going to guess the last week of April, but don't hold me to that. And without, of course, Neil's crew, none of this would happen. So we have to thank them for slugging through. And, also for Crystal and Heidi and Becky and Kathy and Lisa and everybody that helps make all this tourism thing possible. Stephanie has been championing the Halloween Town vendor carts, and we expect to send out confirmations on to those vendors sometime next week.
Is there a
And
limit on those?
what's
Is
that?
there a limit on how
Yeah.
many vendors?
Mm-hmm.
How many more you got to fill?
Well, right now we have a really good variety, so we try not to overlap
Yep,
products.
I know that.
Yeah, and we have like 3 new vendors, so that's good. The Sausage King guys and we're working with other groups that want to get involved but don't really know like what to sell. So we're kind of helping them figure out what they can sell that makes sense and isn't a ton of work if they haven't done it before. So that's an ongoing process.
All of them are welcome. They just have to fill out
right.
the application. They
Yeah.
have to pay the $600 down.
Yeah, exactly.
More.
Mm-hmm.
You come to the city. Tina's hired by the city to run this program.
Yeah.
We put a lot of money and time into this.
Yeah.
Through Public Works, through planning, through Terry,
Everybody.
and the whole triage that was behind the
Yeah.
county courts.
Yeah.
To parking, to routes coming in and out, and city staff hanging the
All of that.
all the decorations.
Yeah.
And we also invited some attractive people out this way that has carried this tourism. Now, and I guess where I'm going with this is if you want to be a part of this, you're all welcome, but you all have to play by the rules. And I don't feel we have that happening with a particular organization. Speaking of Shedco. As of most recently, I just want the entire council to know that me and Keith have been there for 3 months in a row, and there's some things that are discussed openly and some things that aren't discussed openly. And they say they want to have a relationship with the city. Well, I don't know about you, but anytime I partner up with somebody in a business dealing, it's completely honest. And if they're not willing to be
Maybe
honest,
my last meeting, unless they decide to play ball.
is that, you know, every business opportunity I've had, I've always been, each side has been forthcoming, and that's the way that business relationship.
Are they true to their mission?
You know, and that was another I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, because when they were formed, their mission was very important to promote the economic development of small businesses in our community, in our town.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about that at their meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just also wanted to mention that the first merchants meeting was really, I think, successful in making a start for some really positive things to happen for the merchants. And the next meeting for that is on Tuesday, and we already have about 30% more people signed up, so we'll have just over 20 people that are coming that are interested, and it's going to be great because we already have accomplished a lot of the things on their list of things that, you know, were concerns to them that they thought we could improve on. So I'll be interested to get their feedback and continue with whatever counselors want to come, and you know, hopefully John will be there so he can keep us on track. But yeah, we have some really positive things happening with that. And then, you know, from my side, I have not really had any conversations with Shedco whatsoever. I have left that in Stephanie's hands.
And I just want to let you know that you have and I think I speak, if I'm not, that Tina speaks, the whole council knows exactly what she is or is not doing. Is that correct? Right? I do. And that you have our support.
Thank
that
you.
we're open to whoever wants to play by the rules and be a team player.
Yeah, of course.
Okay? Just want to put that out there for the record.
Yeah. So does anyone have any questions?
I want you to answer that 3 or 4-year-old as soon as you possibly can, because she is checking the mailbox
waiting.
as we speak. Our oldest daughter wrote the Cracker Jacks, man, because there was not a prize in her every box that she got.
Uh-oh.
She was out at the mailbox for 2 months and never heard from the Cracker Jacks, man. And never has had Cracker Jacks since she's been in the 3rd grade. But she loves caramel corn. However.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd put that out there.
One thing I just wanted to thank Tina, the one thing I've noticed in the years that I've been supporting the cause is I just appreciate her eye and her ear to protecting the city's interests. And I think that a lot of times we forget that in the props of Halloween, that one of her core duties, the reason why we've contracted her is that she is a professional event person that actually knows what you can and can't do and how to protect the city's assets and the city's interests. And I really appreciate her that always maintaining that level head of keeping everybody on board as best she can in a small town that we have.
That's a good point you just brought up. I'm sitting here thinking, if we let certain organizations, doesn't matter what their cause are, go ahead and do rogue events, and it's maybe just one that I know of right now, but 2, where are we at in 7 years from now? And
You mean
with mass
rogue events
gatherings
in the name of the
Terry,
city?
that the city has no idea about, I couldn't imagine trying to police it, and it could become very, if we let one go and we don't know about it, they're not falling under the umbrella, then it just opens up a whole door for future people.
Clarification. I think you mean
Yes.
in the name of the city, not
Yes.
any events. They
Yeah,
can
yeah.
have whatever events they want.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yes.
in our
In the name of the city,
Yeah.
yes, yes. With all the money and the time and everything behind it, yes.
Mostly liability.
Yes, mostly liability.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I just want to make one comment about that. I think that if the city is spending tens of thousands of dollars to put this together with all the resources that they have on top of that from Public Works, from city officials, from the police department, from parks and everything else, and then we are spending so much money to bring people here, and then an outside group decides to, invite them to do something for them, then what's to stop every other group in town from doing the same thing? So then you are, you've got one group, and then what's to stop another group from saying, oh, well, if they can do that, why can't we?
Be
And
like the city
I
of
think
St.
that,
Helens going and taking over the Portland Blues Festival
yes,
and capitalizing from it.
yeah.
It's no different. I mean, it is what it is. That's really, if we just packed up and said we can do some stuff around that,
Yeah.
we're not really invited, but we'll kind of play by your rules.
So I think that's the biggest danger. Is just where does that stop?
We want to hold the integrity to the people that participate,
Yes.
because there's lots of people that are doing really good work and really good
Tons.
and we want to take care of people that play by the rules.
Listen, a lot of time and effort is spent around this, and Tina, you do a lot, and we appreciate you. And I just want to make that clear. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch base on?
I don't think so.
I just
We're
wanted
just-
to, oh, you go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, before we leave tourism, I wanted to talk about our rekindled interest or relationship with Travel Oregon and Travel Portland. Now for years we've been kind of, outside the circle. We've asked for support, and we weren't a Portland event, so we didn't get support. But that door is open now, and we're attempting to try to walk through it. And,
I think that's really positive.
And I think
I
they
think,
were
yeah,
in our
we've,
meetings
like-
that we've had downtown in their offices and shared some of our social media analytics.
Yeah.
We do exist, despite their.
Yeah, I think they're kind of saying, "Whoa."
Yeah. I don't know if you want to share some of the. I don't know that the council probably has heard some of them, just on the one Spirit of Halloween page. How much traffic we've had.
Yeah, well, just for one 30-day period, we had 29 million individual people that came to our pages.
Wow.
That is huge.
29
29
million. I don't
million.
know if your microphone picked it up. I just want
29
people to hear
million.
that. In 1 month's time,
Yes.
the
uh-huh.
page was viewed 29
29
million times.
times. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So we are
not the-
definitely making
That
a
little
mark.
girl is on the computer a lot.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's individual. That's unique visitors. That's unique visitors. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's
But I think that these numbers are giving us way more exposure to Travel Oregon, which some of the board members have, told me, "Wow, why are we not more aware of what you guys are doing out there?" Well, now they're much more aware, and they've kind of told us that we should be applying for some major grants that we would probably qualify for, and and just connecting Columbia County together too. So it's really super positive on that side.
all the more reason to have a.
To have a cohesive message.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you taking care of businesses with vendor supplies like T-shirts and caps and those kinds of things for our business community to possibly sell or whatever?
Well, up until now, we have not had any retail stores open other than the month of Halloween itself with the Cuts Plus and Scandalous. And then we opened our own gift shop. So we wouldn't be typically giving our products to other people to sell because we're selling them ourselves. However, anybody in town can make Halloween apparel, like Shoestring Players does, for instance, and sell it. Like, we don't have any problem with that. I would totally support that. They just can't use Spirit of Halloween Town. That's all. So
There was quite
there's a
few
ton of
products I saw last year and the year before that people got creative and did some orange and black of their own.
Yeah.
And just said, here we are, Halloween
Yeah.
in St. Helens. They didn't use any of the city's logo. They just made
Yeah.
their own.
So if they do use the city's logo,
they have to get permission.
get permission, and what's the revenue exchange of any
Well-
art fees?
That would depend probably on what they wanted to sell.
Yeah, and so that depends on your decision at that time to.
That would be nice, but no. These guys decide that.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But we're open to that. Anyone that wants to, get on board, because we're going to have not in your face Halloween throughout the year, but if you're coming here because of Halloween, we definitely want to have a place for you to go and something for you to do while you're here. So the rock painting is really good because it's easy to manage. The gift shop is easy to manage. The museum is easy to manage. And the escape rooms, which we don't manage, are starting to come online too. So they're hoping to have the first one open at the end of April.
I noticed they were working pretty hard.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So we're, hopeful that people will come and be able to find something that, like, makes them want to come back. But if they can't come in October, we want them to be able to come and do something fun, throughout the year.
Kathy, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we went out for an RFP for an event coordinator, working with the merchants such as you've been doing wasn't part of that plan as far as, the extent. But I want to say that you have done an incredible job working with the merchants, and what you're continuing to do and accomplishing is excellent. And I don't think that we can be accused of it not being business friendly as much as we were in the past. I think that's improving based on the events of the things that you're doing and John are doing. So I just want to credit you with that.
Thank you. And that's what we want to do. Make everybody happy, profitable, successful. Some of it's easy to manage, but it just takes maybe not having a board, just having people working together to figure out what we need to do to change, honestly. Sometimes too much governance is not a good thing. So I think that we're getting more accomplished because it's casual. So
Good
I
job.
would welcome any counselors to come to any of those merchant meetings because you can kind of see what the vibe is and people,
And we can, because there's never a decision made there. There's only
No, there
there's
isn't.
only discussion.
That's right.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
actually having attended the last one, I think they appreciate having our voice there. And
Yeah, I
having
do
our
too.
ears there and listening. And I think although the minutes are taken and John gives a report and you gets a report, hearing for myself, because there were things that happened in the course of the meeting that was very impactful, that if you weren't sitting there, you wouldn't have got the vibe.
Right.
That it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was a pretty unanimous statement. You know, that was kind of important, and so it's nice to be able to hear that directly from them.
Yeah. And I think that just keeping it to the merchants is like super key because in the future maybe we need to split into different groups, but they have specific things that they want done that don't really relate to just general business necessarily. So,
Well, and they have specific questions
Yeah,
that are
that's
indicative
yeah.
of a business owner,
right.
and not necessarily a nonprofit or a general citizen.
Yeah.
I appreciate your asking those questions because
Yeah.
sometimes assumptions are made about what a business needs rather than actually asking the merchant.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Stephanie has been really valuable in doing a lot of groundwork for me in distributing flyers and talking to the merchants and getting direct feedback and letting them know when the next meetings are coming up because it doesn't matter how many letters you send out and how much emails if they don't read it and then they're like, I didn't get invited. And we want everybody to know they got invited. So she's doing a lot of work in making that happen.
That's a
and-
good point. I appreciate that
Yeah.
you and Stephanie both
Good team.
are available.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that makes a difference.
Super.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Terry?
We recently moved from our iPads to a Windows-based computer system in our cars that'll allow us better access to our new computer-aided dispatch system at 911 and access to our databases in our cars. To that end, I've pledged all of our old iPads to the St. Helens School District. They have a project in mind for them, and so on your agenda tonight is a declaration of surplus for those iPads, and I'll be presenting them to the school district when we're
Okay.
done.
Good cause. Sue?
Oh, wow, that was fast. Thank you for letting Aaron come today and have
Yeah.
a little bit of a forum and be able to bring some of his thoughts and concerns to the council. And one of the things that he mentioned was the pretreatment program and how the DEQ has identified that they don't feel we have adequate resources to efficiently manage that. And that is something that Matt and I have already been talking about is potentially how to fund at least a part-time position to help address some of those concerns with DEQ so that we can better manage that, especially being able to have enough staffing to effectively enforce the new pretreatment permit with Cascades and be able to be a little bit more proactive with some of the other accounts that would be incorporated into that pretreatment program that are incorporated in there, but we just don't have enough staffing to be able to be proactive and keep up with the number of visits and inspections and things like that that are we should be doing on a regular basis. So thank you for giving that opportunity there. And then also on the agenda tonight, I have two bids that were opened yesterday that we are proposing to award this evening. We got really good numbers right where we anticipated them to be, and
Perfect.
so hopefully we'll move forward with those two projects.
All right.
And that was about it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Neil?
I did have one item. About a year, or a little over a year ago, the UTC code changed for street signs, which makes most of all of our signs not in compliance, and we have a lot of signs that we always carried, 2 or 3 spare signs in our inventory, and none of those are any good either, unfortunately. The city of Newburgh recently implemented a program, I think in part because of this, that they're actually offered the signs to the citizens for $5 a piece. And they said when they first sent it out on Facebook. They had like 150 replies on the first day.
Do you have any extra Elm Streets?
Sure we do. We'll give you 2 for 10 'cause you're married.
2 for 10.
No, but I'd kind of like to implement that if that's okay with the council, because I thought it was kind of a unique idea. And
Yeah.
it sounds like it's working there, so maybe we can get Crystal to send some stuff out, see if there's any interest.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Neil. Margaret?
Much earlier, when we were planning budget meetings, I asked if we could move one of the budget meetings to a different night, so, because we were expecting to host an author. And now I'm at a position where I can tell you more about that. We're combining the library's book club with the same event that we've had in years past, which is Columbia County Reads. And so in late April, all of the Columbia County libraries are going to be part of a program. 4 of us are going to actually host the Scappoose author, Willie Vlaughton. Willie has 4 books to his credit, and even though he lives in Scappoose, he has an international reputation. His first book, The Motel Life, was a New York Times Editor's Choice and notable book, and it was made into a major motion picture starring Dakota Fanning. Another book of his, Lean on Pete, was the winner of the Ken Kesey Award, and it was recently made into a major motion picture that was screened at the most recent Portland International Film Festival. He has a new book out called Don't Skip Out on Me, but these 4 nights that he's going to be at the Scappoose Library, the St. Helens Library, Vernonia, and Clatskanie, he's going to discuss 2 of those most recent books. We've selected Lean on Pete. That's our book club selection, so he'll be talking about that the evening that he's with us, which is Thursday, April 26th at 7 p.m. He's been popping up an awful lot. In addition to the Portland International Film Festival, he was at Powell's Books earlier, and I've seen him on Oregon Art Beat. So he's, I feel like we've picked a wonderful time to bring him out to Columbia County Libraries. When he was on Oregon Art Beat, they asked him about also being a musician, because he's had a band called Richmond Fontaine, which was very popular in Europe, and he's since formed a new band called the DeLines, and they've sold out all their venues on their first UK and Irish tour. But he said, you know, when he didn't think he was doing a very good job as an author, he could always fall back on the fact that he was a musician, and when he didn't feel very good about his musicianship, he could always fall back on the fact that he was an author. But he's a pretty laid-back guy, and I think it'll be a nice evening, so plan to come out if you can't make it the night that we're having it. He's going to be at Scappoose the Wednesday before, Vernonia the Friday after he's with us, and then Saturday he'll be in Clatskanie. So that's a nice event for us. We're looking forward to that. I also wanted to bring you up to date on the project I talked to you about earlier, where we were going to pursue the idea of a union catalog with the Scappoose Public Library. And Jeff Weiss, their new director, and I put in a brief proposal to the State Library for feedback, and they've given us their comments on our proposal. And Jeff and I spent some time on the phone with them on Monday, and they've told us how to strengthen our proposal, but they did say that it had been reviewed by the whole grant committee and some of the staff there at the library. And they felt it was a strong proposal, and it looks like they've got some funds available. So we're optimistic that will get approved. The most exciting news, I think, that's developed since I told you about this idea is that we have looked further at the idea of hosting our data in the cloud instead of on our servers. And Sean and Max have reviewed the proposal and given us a thumbs up. What makes this interesting is that it removes the responsibility for housing the data from St. Helens and places it with our software vendor. And that has a couple of advantages. One, today, when we have difficulties, sometimes it's a technical problem. It's hard to ferret out whether it's on our end or on the vendors. And so we have a kind of a three-way conversation going between St. Helens and CenterLogic and our software vendor. When we add another library to the mix, that's just another element of complexity. And so if this winds up being kind of a first step in a possible cooperative arrangement that could add, if there's interest, other libraries, it's easier to have a central, solely responsible entity, which would be the software vendor for hosting the data, as opposed to our library. And it makes it much easier from just a kind of a sustainability standpoint to add other libraries in that format, because we wouldn't constantly have to revisit whether or not our servers had the capacity to add more. The exciting thing is that even with our portion of the hosting charges and the software license, we're still talking of an annual expense that's $1,200 per year less than what we are currently paying, and that doesn't even include the cost of the servers and the server maintenance and any kind of support we would need from CenterLogic. So it's a very positive move forward from an expense standpoint, as well as just a general structural standpoint. So that's exciting news. We'll look forward to launching that project when we hear whether or not we've gotten the grant. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we have our new library assistant on board. His name is Cameron Burkhart, and he's a freelance writer, and he has a lot interesting skill set that really aligns well with the library, and we're just excited to have him on board. And that's it.
Hey, thank you, Margaret. Matt?
I do have one thing I just wanted to mention to the City Council. We had our informational budget meeting last week, and through that discussion, we had an opportunities list of a lot of items that were very healthy discussions, I think. There was one item on the list that I wanted to just kind of brief and kind of re-clarify the intention of it. That item was a facilities maintenance manager position. And this is partly my fault of owning the mistake of I don't think I was as clear as I should have been in what I was trying to accomplish with this opportunity. If you recall, several months ago, there were discussions on the work session, City Council members, about having somebody particularly for management of properties. That was someone who could take over looking after the cleanup that was needed on the Boise property, some of the property that was bought in the recent couple of years, and then on kind of just ongoing projects management. With all of the budget constraints that were kind of dealt with at this moment and all the requests for additional staffing, I was trying to look for a more cost-effective way to achieve a facility maintenance position. It was never my intention to take somebody away from Public Works and put them in another department, have a new manager, or completely change the job description that he wouldn't be working with the crew or anything like that. So I just wanted to clarify that the intention of that facilities maintenance job came from discussion that I've heard, much like I do when I'm just taking notes at a council meeting, the ideas of a ferry and a cost study. Well, that goes down in my notes about a potential opportunity to look at in future years. It's things that I do when I review council meetings and I go back and listen to things that were said or anything like that. I jot down notes throughout the year, and that's kind of how the opportunity list kind of builds itself. But I did want to just mention to the City Council and Public Works directly, and especially Neil and Sue, it was never my intention to take staff away from Public Works, and the intention of that was to truly build kind of a facilities maintenance job. And in that position, it helps funding in some aspects of that. We have a community development department with a facility maintenance line item that is where we normally can charge stuff for if we go over to the Boise property and mow the grass or something like that. But there's also maintenance of that properties that can be curtailed into potentially helping pay 5 or 10 grand or so for that facilities manager position, if I can honestly and ethically say that that person is doing that. So that is what the intention of that facilities maintenance job was to have a discussion. And that's on my fault for not being as clear as I could in the explanation. Unfortunately, with a lot of these opportunities, there is a history, and then there's some that have a very long history.
Yes.
And especially with...
And we're not familiar with that, are we, Matt?
Well, not in a year and 9 months or whatever I've been here.
I'm a year and
but
3.
Well, and and I know it's especially hard on even the budget committee members, where we have 3 new members that are thrust into that position, having to,
yes,
make judgments and calls on these decisions, make judgments and calls and advising the city council to what decisions they would like to see. But I hope after this we can kind of move forward with the opportunities list as a discussion format is what the intention of it is. And so just want to apologize to Sue and Neil for and clarify what my true intentions were, and to kind of barter any bridges that were broken during that process. That's all.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Matt. We are a team, and that's how we keep a team together, is we make sure we are interactive and talk about things that are sometimes uncomfortable to talk about. So it takes a big man to do that. I appreciate that. Kathy. Okay, John?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Kind of coincident to Columbia Learning Center, the use of the Columbia Learning Center. I don't recall ever getting a request to pay half of their director's insurance. We were sent an invoice to that effect, and Matt looked at our history, and it just came in the mail. So I probably should have had a little more time to explore the request, but it's billed for $1,079 to pay for half of the director's and officer's insurance. And at least in my tenure here, I haven't seen that request, nor have we paid it.
Who's that
Half
from?
of the insurance, and we have 1 representative?
Who's it from?
To the Columbia Learning Center?
2? Oh, okay. But half, and we have 2 members, and how many members are there?
Happy to follow up. I just, and it wouldn't be the first time we just have been invoiced to see if they pay, kind of thing. But we get those occasionally as well.
You remember that, Doug?
No.
I don't remember that.
No.
Okay, well, I can follow up with them
But-
and see what the purpose, or if they want to make a presentation, or
Who signed that?
it's
just
It's not
like a QuickBooks kind of invoice looking thing.
very vague.
Where's the address? Where are you mailing it to? Is
Have
that,
to
is
talk
that
to
my
Brian
address?
Little about this.
Is my address on there?
But we haven't got them in years past. This is the
No.
first year.
Do you think it just got misdirected?
No.
No, it's clearly to the city.
We occasionally get requests that are just
Okay.
agencies.
Oh, yeah.
Pay bills, yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll give that the.
Can you copy that and give
Sure.
me a copy, please? I want to follow up on it.
Sure.
It's not our committee.
I believe it was last week, soon after our walk out there at the high school, I was approached by a small group of high school students that wanted to do a fundraiser to raise money for cameras at the high school. And what they wanted to do for the fundraiser, they wanted to do a walk around the veneer property. So they were typically we would do that through some kind of special use permit, but I wanted to. In their business plan wasn't very developed, frankly, and we went through the pieces of the puzzle they would need to do that event, and they had a date of somewhere a weekend day towards the end of May, or maybe possibly June to do that. And I just wanted to see the council's interest in letting the group of high schools properly permitted and insured to use the veneer property as a
walking
event, or a walkathon to raise money for cameras at the school. Apparently there's no outside cameras, and a lot of them are on the inside either.
And this is something authorized by the school?
Yes, I've seen it it was promoted on the school's page and maybe from the newspaper. I'm not sure. It all came out of the walkout, and I just saw it before I came here talking about it.
When are they going to do that?
I think it's on towards, I didn't get a date, and I didn't really even get a,
That would be something to have them come to the city youth council and recommend.
all right.
Which would in turn then recommend it to us?
Yes.
I did mention that we had a youth
And maybe,
council.
maybe go through the city youth council
Yes.
doing that.
Yeah, I think that was their first experience at City Hall, so I was trying to make it a pleasant one. And
Yes.
they were pretty nervous. Okay, the next one is, earlier today, I met with Hudson Garbage and to talk about this
Cycling.
national
Crisis?
national crisis regarding to what we're calling the China-induced market disruption, which is the recycling markets have been very much impacted. They basically cut off the supply, effectively cut off the supply of recyclables heading to China because they've set a clean quality standard that is basically unachievable apparently to the market. It's like 5% right now is allowed to be unusable types of materials, and they're setting it at 0.5, and they said that's not a realistic standard. So when they ship a container over there and it has one piece, one section that's over the 0.5, they reject the whole load. There's all those transportation costs in getting it there, and if it gets rejected, they're coming back, and there's nowhere for it to go. So it's a big deal, and so it's really got everybody on scare. And it's been about since the beginning of the year. This has really spiked up. And in case you are wondering where or how that happens, is Hudson collects our recyclables, takes them to Vancouver. They go onto a conveyor belt sorting system that picks through then there's people that pick through and get the whatever's economic value out of what they can sell, and then the rest of it goes into the landfill. And it's this first page of this chart talks about this commingling price as of March 18, and the baseline commodity revenue. It's right now it costs them about $48.68 a ton to get rid of what's left off of that waste stream. Right now, given that there's much less material coming across that conveyor belt, the price has gone to $145 a ton. So they're having to pay triple to get rid of what they can't sell, which is going to landfill. Which kind of begs, you start to kind of get into some philosophical questions of, is this just a temporary market disruption, or is this a long-term impact, and should we just redirect those? Do we embrace the culture of recycling that we've created over the last 30 years, people, environmental stewardship types of things, versus just directing things to the landfill at a lower cost? And I think that I think this is a temporary blip until the market adjusts and there's somebody steps up to, somebody like a ceiling tile manufacturer that takes all kinds of odd stuff and grinds it up and puts it into a product. Somebody out there will come up with a market for this. I think, though, the direct landfill options is less money, but it's not a lot. We're talking like $1 a month on a 35 gallon can. So, well, that could be a lot to some people, but. So Hudson, with this increased cost, is asking to pass some of that along. They're kind of sensitive to the fact that this is a pretty volatile market and trying to figure a way to structure a rate that's fair and equitable between the hauler and the city as a customer. If the market, they find a market and the price goes down, then they're going to see a windfall. But if it keeps going up, so we talked about some surcharge options of rates, but they're not really. That doesn't seem to be a real. I kind of reflect back 20 years ago when we were just starting with recycling programs. They used to have to pay for recycling, and people didn't want to pay for recycling. They would rather throw it away, and it was kind of the culture. but that's changed. People, you know, now we have smaller garbage cans and bigger recycling cans.
I'd hate to see that culture reverse.
So to continue to recycle, basically what I see on here, the weekly customer is $1.61 increase, and if we didn't continue, would be a 95-cent increase. Which is
So
still
it-
an increase
yeah, and
because they have
that's-
to take that extra volume to the landfill.
Correct. But then you're talking about
Yes.
a refitting of
Yeah, I
bigger
know.
garbage cans and, you know, not
And breaking
recycling.
out of that recycling mode. that-
And yeah, you're not gonna have a green can anymore.
Well, they had talked about at the meeting,
Yeah.
speaking to him, he had talked about still letting people do that because the same truck picks up all the junk.
Yep.
And so the driver can control what bin stuff goes into, and they can decide to just dump everything without changing anything to the customer
Which
except for
they've
the
had
rate.
to deal starting now.
Yeah, which
what they
is,
said.
that's what?
I said that, they already said they are doing that, they're just
Right.
not pushing the cost on, because they're,
Right.
they're hoping this blip goes away too, because they said the mills over there really want it. It's the government that actually put the stipulation on
Right.
this, and, so a lot of those mills are begging for the material and just aren't getting it.
There's two different rates here. There's one that shows $1.61 increase, one that shows $2.28
Okay, yeah,
increase.
that was gonna be the next thing I explained. The second page, what you're looking at on the first page is the, like, starting today for the first, you know, starting in March versus if we rewind to the beginning of the year. So,
So that'd be $11,
and they're not
month.
asking, they're not asking, they're,
continue.
they feel like the first page proposal would be, you know, if they're going full cost of their impact, it would be since the beginning of the year, which is about a 9% increase to them. And, so I thought I would introduce this. Sounds, you know, I was at the city county meeting and they talked about it a little bit, and you know, some kind of a rate resolution to reflect these changes.
Are they going to the county first because doesn't the county often
They kinda
adopt
do
it and then it
control
comes
it,
to
yeah.
us?
They control the tipping fees, the county does.
I'm not sure that the county receives that material from the curbside. That's all going to Vancouver to go through the sorting facilities. I don't think they haul it back here to put it on a transfer. I don't know that for a fact, but I would think
No, they,
it doesn't make sense. But
no, they bring it in down here and they dump it
Yeah.
in the big warehouse, and then it gets pushed into this big old
Yeah.
trailer compactor thing.
Yeah, then
and
it
it
goes
gets
The
to
garbage, not the recycle though.
yeah,
The recycle, they do put it in a different area, so that I think they may just reload it in another truck. I've seen it kind of offset a little bit.
All I know is every time the tipping
Unless
fees
it's
change
those
at the county,
occasions.
my garbage bill changes.
we have a contractual obligation to that.
That's for
Yeah.
the transfer station.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the reason that if it's not perfectly clear, is that the expense to dump the unused recyclables is expensive is because it's getting packaged, shipped over to Vancouver, put on a conveyor belt that they're slowing way down to try to pull every little thing they can get money out of, and then taking a big chunk, all that labor and movement of material, rehandling, and then it goes to the, you know, what's not used goes to landfill.
It would be
Until a
hard.
market, you know, develops to, and there's, you know, economic value in that.
I think it would be hard to reassume recycling in the form we have it now after this blip is over, after, if we discontinue it, I would hate to see it.
yeah, I'd rather just see the assortment of what you can recycle change a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about the education component of it.
And that's part of it too, yes, because the plastic bags are the worst things.
Yeah, the cans that we have are not clearly marked the way they are in other places. In other places, there's actually pictures on top. So even if somebody couldn't read or didn't understand, they could see a picture of what can go in that can. It might help people be more clear, because in just driving down the street, you see people with all kinds of stuff crammed into both cans.
Well, partly it's because I'm a family of 4, and they're also talking about not taking the milk jugs or milk cartons, and a couple other things were discussed that they're not gonna, no matter what, they're gonna quit taking it. I do not want it in there. It's
I think
the
they take
dirty
the milk
stuff.
jugs, but not the milk cartons.
Right.
So I have my garbage can open the lid
Oh,
about
yeah.
this far, right? And
They're
I'm the one
cracking
that
down.
always does the garbage. No different than it has been in years past. I got a $2 overfill fee. I'm thinking,
Yeah, they're
what
cracking
the
down. They
heck?
started last
Really?
fall. Last fall.
So I
had
got
3 of
this
them.
green can that's 2/3 full, but not stuffed by any means. There's still that. You don't want me to throw my milk cartons in there, but you're going to charge me $2 extra for a lid that
Right.
that much more room would close.
Gotta jump up and down on it.
Was not happy. I didn't press it, but I was not happy when I seen that on the bill.
I had $6. It's like, how's the garbage bill go up 6? It's like when bills change, a bill that's always the same.
Yeah, 51.
It's like,
whatever
what
it is.
happened?
Yep.
I don't know how it stays the same when they skip a week. How's that happen?
It goes back to the packaging. We didn't have so much packaging.
So this is just to be aware
Yeah,
of.
this is just to get it in front
Okay.
of you. They,
Right.
and I got the facts hopefully mostly right. I went a pretty brief meeting this morning, but they would like to come back to the next meeting and talk about it, and then probably have a resolution in hand as far as the rates and the typical opportunity to comment and things of that nature we do. Yep.
Just telling the mayor, said go easy. They're going to adjust
Yeah,
this a little bit
I
more.
worry about pressure on. I know $1 or $2 doesn't sound like much, but with everything going up and with all of the code enforcement we have, with people hoarding and keeping their garbage piled up, I worry about pressure on that. People decide they're going to haul their garbage themselves to the
They
dump.
save
to
their money and they don't do it.
And then they
and
never
we've got a
haul
rat
it.
problem.
Right.
Yeah,
And then we got
exactly.
a rat problem. Yep.
So, you just got to balance it.
Yeah. Anything else, John?
Just a messenger here.
Don't shoot the message.
I don't.
That's it? Okay. Let's start with Councillor Locke.
Just our company, Orgrotech. I don't know if you guys know who Orgrotech is, but that's the same as ACSP.
Okay.
They're coming along. I took Doug out there a few days ago to look at things, and a lot of things are changing out there. So probably in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, if you guys want to take a tour out there, I'll get you guys out there and show you. They've got most of their pods up and getting things looking like they're getting ready to go.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the little confusion on the school walkout thing. It was accused of our youth council being in the background, which it was a youth council member. It was not David, who has been to our council meetings the last several meetings. It was Jeremiah, who is our now past chair. That was the instigator out there. So
Thank you for clarifying
anyway,
that.
the youth council.
He was
I guess
he was practicing his First Amendment, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Keith?
Walking all
Okay.
over.
But he was being kind of rude as he was doing it. Yeah. So anyway, he's not part of the youth council anymore. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there because David will be here again tonight.
Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Very excited about all this development that's coming up. Lots of different things are coming through. Planning Commission, different things coming through with the school district and different buildings here and there. Very exciting. The one thing that we got a memo, we were scheduled to give a appreciation plaque to Miss Diane Dillard this evening, and she's unable to make it, and she suggested that she could come by and pick it up. And for me, I'm like, I want to appreciate her. I want to appreciate her face to face, and I don't want it to reschedule. It's like I would like to at least make the suggestion that maybe Sue and myself or could take it to her,
Sure.
maybe some flowers and the plaque, and not, if it's hard for her to make it down here, it shouldn't be a burden to be appreciated. And I'd be happy to go with Sue. It's
Right.
because she served on the Arts Commission at Sue's place to do that. I've worked with Diane a few things over the years, and I just thought that it might be less pressure to just pop by and say, you know, thanks a lot, and we don't want to add to your schedule that's already overburdened. So just a suggestion, if Sue was open to doing that and Diane was open to take it that way, then it's not up to her to find a schedule for us. We'll just do it on her schedule, if that's okay. And that's all
Fine
I
with
have.
me. I'm okay with that. Yep. Yep. Okay. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Councillor Khan.
In the spirit of our partnering with the school district, I just wanted to announce that they're having the groundbreaking tonight for the Columbia County Education Campus, CCEC, and everybody's invited at 5:30.
They fenced off the stuff for the middle school too, and all the middle schoolers are very excited.
Oh, good.
They're all like, we have walked across the track for the last time.
Yep.
The next time we walk across that space, it will be our school.
A new
They're very
phase
excited.
is starting.
Nice. I know you gave part of the report, but Doug, Council President Morton?
It was very interesting touring the grow facility down at Cascades. When I was there, Keith took me around to the various areas in the industrial park. I was really very impressed with what Public Works has done in clearing a lot of that property. And I do look forward, and hopefully there's a place in our budget, upcoming budget, that we can get that land totally cleared and leveled and ready for sale and encouragement of new industry coming to our city. I think some financial status on that would be very much appreciated, and I'd like to see that maybe brought up in our budget committee meeting. It's something that we're going to need to look forward to in 2018, and I heard nothing of it. So there's many things in that opportunity list that I heard nothing about that I think have a lot more to do with our budget other than restructuring our government. Which is one of the things I asked not to be on there, and apparently it's still going to be there. But hopefully if we want to go restructure the government, we do it, and we do it right. And that means that it probably take a year of committee work to get it back out to the vote of the people, and all of those kinds of steps that were taken in the appropriate place when we did restructure our government. So to bring that back up again, I was very disappointed in that opportunity list with that in terms of the government, in terms of job descriptions. Man, that's a big item. We're going to be here for a long, long time if we talk about those effectively and efficiently. If we have a good discussion about those items, it isn't going to happen in the timelines that we have set forth. And I need to think about the council initiating that process of that discussion. I don't believe that I do believe that we have leadership in each of our departments that is so economically sound that they can make decisions on their department that save a lot of money, and that we need to have confidence in our departments to do that. And so I look forward to hearing from our department people, our department heads, in terms of the budgets that they have, and in terms of their leadership in going forward with our budget process. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, so at our budget committee meeting, we did have the garden club show up. And I want to recommend to the staff that or to the council that we reimburse their $1,000 that they have out of pocket of putting into our triangle up there around the Veterans Memorial. Not their labor. They actually have $1,000 out of their own pocket to benefit our property. They've probably done what they figured, $25,000 worth of labor. They're not. And they weren't even asking. I think it's a gesture that is right. And I think we also send a letter of appreciation to the Garden Club of what they did do and continue to do for us. They are getting older. I seen them up there 2 days ago working on the triangle, Stan and another gentleman. So I don't know. I think it's just a head nod. We have that in our council funds. It's $1,000.
I definitely concur with the mayor. I see them out there every single week, rain or shine, all year long. I mean, stuff barely dies back and they're out there weeding, and we don't have the crew to be doing that. And they make it look beautiful and make our community a better place.
Yeah.
I mean, the rain barely stops and they've got everything all cleaned up at the memorial. I mean, they're just out there and you can just count on them, and those kind of volunteers need to be appreciated. And however we need to do that, I think we need to definitely set that example in supporting them.
I do appreciate all of their work, and I agree.
Okay, agree. Doug?
I can't
Thank
agree because I'm a garden club member and
Okay.
I'm just not going
Keith?
to go there.
I think that's opening up a can of worms. There's a lot of people that do the same thing. So
That pull out.
This wasn't an ask. This is
Yeah.
appreciation for years and years of.
They
I
did
know.
not ask.
You're asking my opinion.
So you
And
say
I'm
yes.
saying there's a lot of people that do the same thing.
True.
That aren't getting compensated, so we're just opening a can of worms. That's how I feel.
Well, I would.
Do what you want to do, though. If you got 3 people, do
Yep.
what you want to do.
But I think we do, because I'm going to say I agree.
So just a technical, is the Garden Club an entity, or what would the name on the check be?
What's that?
Is the Garden Club an entity?
I mean,
Or would
do
it
they have a bank account, or do they?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
They're a nonprofit.
They're nonprofit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't know.
Rather than calling it a reimbursement, what if we call it a donation?
Yes.
Kathy?
Do
you
you
have
want them
comment?
to come in for certificates?
No. I just we'll sign something and send it to the chair, and it can be read in their board meeting.
Okay.
Yep. Want to make too big a deal of it. Okay. So rezone Millard Road property. That needs to happen soon. We have a easement on that Chase Road. I would like to staff to get together and figure out what zones are going to work best there. I know this is a little bit of a topic, that R7, but I think there's a mixed use out there that is the most potential for that property, and it is not zoned for that, and it's time to do something with that property. So under John Walsh, I'd like to get that going. If you could follow up on that.
So you want to directing a comp plan amendment to change zoning from, I think it's open space right now, to some residential designation.
Yes.
Okay.
And we do have park property over there. I know that Parks was brought up about how there's a park on that. We do have potential property on Ross Road for those target areas and the master plan. I don't think that property is the right place for that. So I'm aware of that. And lastly, I would like to discuss for an RFQ position on St. Helens Industrial.
Business Park.
Yes, somebody said we should name it Terminal. SHI.
No.
I thought that was kind of cute. So, and part of the RFQ would be, and I would like staff to write down a few of these numbers, and just to, the front parking lot apparently is a 39 foot. The dike out on the lagoon is 31. I just wrote down these numbers. You can look confused. Water level is 27. I'm proposing that we level it down to a 35, and we backfill with dirt to a 39, and then get an engineer to engineer the roads, sewer, and storm and power.
So are you asking for our agreement on these two things? The rezoning?
I want to know, is that,
and on this?
yeah, I want to know about this. You know, we keep saying we have to have a plan, but just to get it level, what's the permit that the hospital property they use? What is that? Landfill permit? Is that correct? The old hospital?
A grade and fill permit?
Grade and fill?
Mhm.
This would be no different, right?
Not much different, but there needs to be a plan presented that shows how much material is being removed and how much
Sure.
is coming in and where is it coming from and where is it going to. That's part of the requirement of the permit.
Okay. So it is industrial property. Does that make any difference?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So what is it going to take to do that, Sue? To get those plans in place? 'Cause I'm not, and I'm just curious.
For
with
that large of a
amount-
parcel, I would assume that would need to be surveyed and then to make a determination of what exactly needed to come out, what it was. Is it asphalt? Is it concrete? Is it solid rock? Is it just loose material? Where is it going to go? And then what material is being brought in? Where is it coming from? And you need volumes for those. So
Okay.
if you're talking about taking it down to a certain level, bringing it up to a certain level, the
Yep.
only way you're going to figure that out is have a surveyor come in and
Sure.
and map the whole place.
Yes.
Then they
So
can
not to
take that
make it-
electronically and
not to
figure
make
out
it
how much.
completely overwhelming. Is this feasible?
Oh, anything's feasible.
Well, yeah, but not to make it overwhelming. Is this feasible?
Oh.
Jacob. there he
Jacob
is.
appeared.
How did you know? Are you watching us upstairs? I think he is
Yes,
watching us upstairs.
So if you're talking about rock
Yes.
on industrial property, we need to do a conditional use permit for mining.
Okay.
And it's just to be able to say, here's what, it's not this, oh my God.
And I have no issues with that
It's just,
either.
it's a protocol
There's-
so we can say, when mining occurs, we have a permit to be consistent with our rules. It's very simple. So we know what's coming out.
Yep.
That's all put in place. So this is what we're approving for the operation. Good.
Yes.
So that's a step you don't want to forget.
Yeah, and I have no issues with that because there's a lot of Boise employees who know that property that it's rolling rock that is not buildable until we do something with it.
Sure.
There's 204 acres of industrial property that is not ready even remotely close, and this is just the very first step in getting it there.
Yeah, it'd be surprising. It'd be controversial.
Yes. Yep. So, and I think that I see John's wanted to
I wanted to
talk
chime in.
about-
I think we missed the approach piece of it. I think that's where you started and you went right to the details is, the request for qualifications versus, how do we solicit a partnership with a private
Yes,
entity to get this done? And that's where I
Oh, that's-
and you,
I
when you were
forgot about
giving the
that.
grade elevations, that kind of made me think that you're sitting a parameter within a proposal, request for a proposal from a contractor on how they're
Mhm.
going to go about doing that.
And I still didn't get it finished yet. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
I guess
there's permitting, there's all the technical details. There's embedded in that process, but I think a request for proposals from qualified contractors would.
I think why I
be a
got
good
sideways is
start.
I seen head shaking and I thought, well, I don't like head shakes. I like, how can we get there? What do you need? Tell me what you need to get there.
So what you are asking us is to approve staff to pursue that, right?
Yes, and it would be, get a little more descriptive on a public-private partnership with, on the RFQ as far as, rock takes on twice or three times the value on 3/4 minus versus 1.5 minus. We might as well get the most out of this resources we can in order to pay for this park. That's us doing our due diligence for our citizens and getting the most out of this opportunity. Two birds with one stone.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just talking about process, I think.
Yeah, we've
you
been
wanna
talking
include
about
us.
preparing that land for 2 years.
So
This is just moving the ball forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and the details of having a survey and knowing environmental constraints and all those.
And
the more we do on the front end, it's less risk to the contractor on their side. So it's time essentially, because it takes time and money to do that. And you can jump in at any point and kind of do it, but there's a added value piece as far as the more clear the project is, probably the better outcome is going to be too. So.
Mm-hmm. So, and Doug's response to his question about your finances, didn't that fall under community development as far as funds, and it's already there?
It does fall under community development. There is money that John and I have just started the discussions of what the budget looks like for next year.
Yeah.
My anticipation was that the council did want to move forward in some fashion. We've already kind of somewhat talked about the logging and the
Yes.
rock removal and all that kind of stuff potentially there. So John and I are just sitting down and starting that discussion on the budget of what it looks like for revenues and expenses to bring to the budget committee to present with that information.
What logging?
What-
Logging where? Up on our tree farm?
No.
Or down
On the mill site.
Down on the mill
On the mill site.
On the mill site.
Well, there's 3 looks by our contractor. One of them's a cut that was
Correct. There's-
ready
yeah.
to go up on the Salmonberry there.
Mhm.
The others to cruise the white paper site to see what's there. Another one's an opportunity with the other Boise property.
So, and I'd like to be there with Neil on that Boise property. On that, yep. So,
At the council, I mean that's.
well, I think I think the biggest thing that I discussed.
Can we add something to that if we're changing zoning?
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
why
we
I was gonna say
haven't
that's the
talked
biggest-
about the mill site. We're going to do that at a retreat, but we've had discussions of the mill site and maybe the front end of the mill site. We need to look at the zoning on it.
Mhm.
So, if you're
Yes. So I just think the rezoning of the mill property or the Millard Road property is probably the something that we could do that would draw interest to that. And that easement on Chase Road, which isn't huge, but it could be beneficial to. It was drawn up, and it expires in 2020, so we have to get going on that.
Can you be specific about what the logging would be over on the Boise property?
There are scattered trees here and there that need to be taken off before we can take rock off.
I don't think we can touch what's in the creek stream area anyway.
Nope.
Because that's all riparian, so that all that's all protected.
I just wanted it to be said.
Yeah, just all the stuff in the back and all the stuff that's in the way with the rocks is I think what we're talking about.
Yeah, it was not my intention to say, logging as far as, logging per term as it would be as Salmonberry
assets.
Creek. So
It's assets to the
I
Boise
apologize for the.
We're not going to talk clear cut.
Correct.
And it's not really that. It's just about community development still. It's
Right.
about the park, actually. It's nothing around the creek that, any of that area. Just,
Okay.
you guys need to take a walk down there.
No, I was asking.
Clarity.
because- Right.
Clarity.
Yep.
Perfect.
Restate the task to the forester was to do an inventory of what's there. And he'll recognize the setbacks from the creek and things of that nature.
So, I think that's all I had to discuss. I don't know if I have I would think with that, anybody else got anything? We can adjourn before we go into executive session. So, we're adjourned. We'll take a quick break and then go into executive.